We set off from our mooring in Leighton Buzzard and headed to get some water, as we always do about once a week. But what followed was very much not the usual events.
Describe our rather choice encounter with the...
So we just had a very, very strange encounter with a man on a boat on a water point. We just left our mooring in Leighton Buzzard, got to the water point, and we thought we'd get water, do everything we need to do there, empty the L-Sound, do the bins, and then go straight through to the Tesco, that's just the other side, and do a stock up on things. Pulled up to the water point, started filling up, and we were there for, we haven't checked the times yet, we think we were there for about half an hour. And during the time when we were first there, this man walked by and started talking to me, and he was like, oh, this is a really great fast water point. And I was like, oh, cool, great. And he said he was moving his boat, and I was like, oh, I wish there was moorings the other side. Basically, we just had a very brief chat. He went on his way, didn't say anything about the water point.
And in this time, someone else came up and said, that there was just a quite nice gentleman with a dog. And he said, oh, you're not going to be too long, are you?
And he moored up behind.
And he said to me, 25, 30 minutes. Yeah. Is that cool? And obviously we've got a big tank, but I immediately on my Apple Watch started a timer for 30 minutes because I didn't want to be someone hogging the water point.
So it takes us usually almost an hour, depending on the water pressure and stuff, to fill the tank. And I didn't feel that this was a particularly incredible water point anyway, but whatever. So yeah, and then this man started absolutely shouting at us. He came up on the boat, started shouting and being like, how long have you been here? How long are you going to be here? And I was like, I don't know. We probably about half an hour because I thought we were about halfway done. And he just started shouting and screaming at us and saying, you're lying, you've been here for hours. And I was like, well, you just saw me. That was like not that long ago. And it was all very weird. But then we were like, okay, what's happening? He tried to come up beside us and moor up on us, which we said was fine. But the whole time he was just being really, really aggressive. He seemed like he wanted to punch Andrew in the face.
And he was saying,
and I was
liars.
like scared.
You're liars.
And he kept accusing us of being liars. Where like, what are we lying about? It's a water point. We're not trying to get away with anything. And if even he'd said, excuse me, I'm in a massive rush. I have, whatever circumstances, because he said his wife was coming out of hospital. If he said, I'm really sorry, do you mind just leaving because I need to get water fast? We would have said yes. Like, that we definitely wouldn't have said anything. We would have been like, no problem, go for it. But he was so incredibly aggressive, like scarily so, and was screaming at us. So we were like, okay, we're just going to finish topping up the tank and then we'll leave. But he continued basically screaming at us and shouting at us the entire time we were there, which was actually quite alarming. So we're just about to come up to a lot, by the way.
And then he said something really ominous, like, something about running into us.
Yeah, so then he took photos of our boat, said he was going to report us to the CRT for being selfish. I can't imagine they have time to deal with that kind of situation, but go for it. But then, he took photos and videos of us and said, I look forward to seeing you again, which had a really strong threatening energy of like he was going to come and, I don't know. We're now going through a tree. All of this, he made it sound like we'd been there for about 6 hours. Whereas actually at the whole time that this whole altercation was going on, it had been maybe 40 minutes. And him doing it prolonged that.
Yeah. When I said to him, oh, well, the tank will be full in a little bit, he's like, oh, it's mysteriously full now, is it? It's like, it's water.
It's the passing of time.
Into a tank. That's it.
He wasn't even the next person in line.
He skipped
there
the
was
line.
another
There was a
boat
person
behind who was
very
waiting, who should have been next. So he presumably cruised past them to come and abuse us. And you're like, what?
Because I went up to him when he was on the bridge, the guy who's a nice guy with a dog, and I just said, be careful of that guy. He seems a bit mad. Because that guy, like I say, I started the timer for half an hour. But that only went off just now as we were cruising. Yeah. So it wasn't even that long.
We were there in total probably an hour 15, an hour 20.
Hour 10,
and that's only because we had to spend 15 of those minutes being shouted at by this unhinged man and fearing for our lives. Had he just been normal about it, we would have been like, sure, go for it.
And then he suggested that we should get helmsman's courses, to which I did suggest that he should get anger management courses. That was, a little bit of sarcasm there, but it was like...
Yeah, he suggested we should get a narrowboat course. In what? In dealing with strange men? That was really stressful.
Yeah.
Anyway, so at that point, we finished getting the water and whatever, and it was a good thing that we'd done everything else already, because then we just left. We were going to go to the Tesco's, it's just the other side of the water point. By that point, it wasn't really the vibe, to be honest. Not feeling like a big Tesco shop. I feel a bit like shaky.
Ominous,
it was when he said,
like,
look forward to seeing you again. And I was like, I hope I never see you again, very strange shouting man. And I am actually a little scared, so I don't really want to be in the area anymore in case he comes back with a hatchet or sets our boat on fire. So yeah, we thought we should maybe just get out of Dodge, as they say. Now we're at lock.
In all of this excitement, we got to a lock and I stayed on the tiller, which was actually my first time steering through a double lock. I'd been a bit nervous to do it for all these weeks, but at this point I was already so stressed by the previous encounter that I thought, let's just do it. What is this lock going to do to me? It's not going to kill me. And this actually turned out really well. I didn't have time to overthink it and it was all totally fine. My control of the boat in general was much better by this point, so the wide lock didn't really present any extra challenges. I was ready for it. This probably makes me a bit of a Karen, but I did actually ring the CRT to ask about the water point situation because the guy kept saying all water points had a hard 1 hour limit, and I wanted to make sure we weren't doing something wrong inadvertently in case there was some kind of secret limit we weren't aware of. Okay, thank you so much for checking that. Really appreciate it. Cheers. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Well. If the CRT hasn't just told us that there isn't any official limit, fill up your tank, then leave, being mindful of other people.
Which is what we always do. Go on to the water point, put the water in, full blast, fill the tank until it's done.
If there was any sign anywhere, because some places do have a 1 hour, 2 hour limit, we would always go by what says on the sign.
Yep.
But here, there was no sign, and that man was wrong.
For example, because this wasn't the situation at all, but if we were ever doing something like washing a boat or doing anything and someone said...
If anyone came,
which we've done
leave.
multiple times.
Yeah, we've washed the boat on a water point, because where else would you do it? But as soon as someone is coming, you're like, oh, hey, you coming in? We're going. Like, we've never, ever even had anyone nearby. You, like, wait for a quiet time. In Braunston, those water points are so busy. There's sometimes, like, 2 boats on, another one waiting, and it's like, get in and get out. But everyone is super nice, and you just get the job done. There's no need for, like, aggression at all. But he was obviously a very deeply unhappy, angry man. So we shouldn't let his issues impact on us. But
exactly.
Yeah, I just hope you don't have to bump into him again. The canals are quite a small place. Like, if I see that boat again, I'm going to have, like, a breakdown. Oh, my God. Pub?
Might have to be.
Oh, they've got a tree up already. He was just a weird man. I actually now most regret that I let that ruin my afternoon.
Yeah.
Because it did. It put me in, like, a really weird mood. I wish I'd just been like, okay, and then just ignored it. Nice.
So we've set off. We sort of slept on yesterday's weird altercation, kind of come up with a small theory. It's probably the situation where there was one available mooring just after the water point. Now, Christina saw the guy who kind of harassed us, so and before he came to the water point, and he was obviously walking down to check the mooring. Then he went back to his boat, rushed. And one thing that's made me think that even more is when I woke up, I remembered that his pins were still in his ropes, which is something you'd do if you were trying to head off really, really quickly. So exactly, I only thought that this morning. So I think that, or we both think, that he really wanted that mooring. So he had actually decided that he was going to come down there, maybe thought, okay, I'm going to cause a bit of a hassle, make these people not want to stay, But basically that seems to be our kind of like logic to his weird, hugely aggressive attitude.
He said to me that he wanted to moor up there, and I was like, oh, well, we're just probably going to stop for 2 hours.
And he never mentioned the water to you once.
He didn't say the water at all. He just said, oh, I'm moving my boat to that spot. And I was like, oh, I wish there was a proper mooring, like a 7-day one. And he was like, well, there's one in front of the Tesco. And I was like, oh, well, we'll probably stop there for 2 hours and then we move on. But I think had we already been off the water point by that point, he would have come alongside us and harassed us off that mooring.
Yes. That's
what I think would have happened. In the same way that he was trying to make out that the water point was his for some reason more than ours, I think he would have done the exact same thing about the mooring. So I think that situation would have happened either way, and it was just like a weird vibe.
And as you said, it probably would have happened to anyone who was on that water point. Because of course he jumped in the queue to the person who was behind, who was politely waiting. So he actually jumped over those to get in there. So
while calling us selfish.
I know, it's so. I think it's one of those things where we both sort of slept on it. We did nothing wrong. We went to get the water, we put the hose in straight away. So it was just a very weird and aggressive guy. But we hope his partner recovers. Maybe it's just stress is his excuse. And we're going to move on because we've got plenty of other things to be getting on with in our lives.
I wasn't sure if I wanted to include any of the footage from the day before in this vlog. I didn't want to ham it up. Everything was fine and none of it was that serious. All of this is just my point of view, and I'm sure this man has his own take on what happened that's completely different to how it came across to us. I also don't really want to dwell on this one weird negative interaction when we've had countless positive ones. And I certainly wish I'd had another crack at describing what happened at the time, where I wasn't quite so shrill. But it felt weird to edit the whole thing out because it did happen and it was part of this whole journey we've been on, so missing it out felt more dishonest. The really great thing about a boat is of course that you can move away from weird neighbours, and we really appreciated that feature in this moment. There's also something about physically driving away from the situation though. As we cruised further away, it really felt like we left this whole strange business behind us. Though I still hope I never have to see that strange man on our travels again.
Oh, they're besties. Droplets of rain on it. Little bits of rain where it says precipitation 0. Andrew's doing the lock. I'm doing the steering. I think we're both looking forward to getting somewhere and Going to the shops. I'm starving. I want some food. I did specifically check the weather and it did say that it wasn't going to rain. So that was a lie. That gate was really hard to use because it's really flimsy.
Yeah, it looks it.
It's really weird. It doesn't have any other weight. I think they fill it with concrete after.
Yeah. How is it, just being in the lock?
A lot more relaxing in many ways. In some ways a bit more stressful, but then also like a lot less physical activity.
Many thanks. How'd you feel?
Not too bad.
Good.
Not too bad. Damn, more than anything.
In between the locks, we'd pulled up on another water point to top up the tank again because we'd been doing some washing as we cruised. And then this happened.
At the very beginning of our narrowboat journey, or maybe day 2, we met a very nice man called Mick, and he told us to always stop for water. Whenever there's a water point, always top up water, and we've always followed his advice, and it's always done us well. So thank you, Mick. So yeah, we got water, and then we found a leak, and now we're on the move again. As always, there's something going on.
We had recently bought a leak sensor which we put by the water tank, which is underneath our bed. We'd been having some issues with finding damp around that area and we couldn't work out if it was condensation or a leak or what was going on. As the water tank got really full, the leak sensor went off. It turned out that the top of the tank, which has a kind of inspection hatch, was leaking, so when it was really full, it would basically overflow and there'd be water on the floorboards. It had been sealed, but the sealant had failed, so it was both impossible to remove it, yet it was letting water seep through. Perfect. There was nothing we could do to fix it in that moment, so we mopped up the water the best we could and carried on.
I think we did, yeah.
Probably right.
He looks like a wise elder.
Yeah.
Like he's watching over, just being like, yes, a boat.
Exactly. I've seen some boats in my life. I'll see others.
Good luck on your journey.
As it was, so it shall be. He does seem like we should ask him for a proverb.
Yeah, he probably actually knows.
Yeah.
But it's too late now.
What a guy.
We cruised into Milton Keynes, which is a long, flat stretch, no locks, for several hours. We hoped to find a good mooring to stop for a few days for a much-needed IKEA trip. We'd been on the boat for long enough to accumulate these very specific little storage problems that only an IKEA could solve. And I'm one of those freaks who really love IKEA. I could go to IKEA as a day out. So I was hoping we'd be able to moor up somewhere nearby, and we found a great spot in Fenny Stratford.
We've been in some quite big Tesco's, but I actually think this might be the biggest big Tesco I've ever seen. That's all I want to say.
See you next week with our adventures from Milton Keynes. And adventures they were.